Vodafone is likely to shut down and leave its 30 crore subscribers and its 13,000 employees completely high and dry. The company that has made losses of 2 lakh crore rupees in the last 10 years now owes the government a whopping 53,000 crore rupees, an amount that's likely to bankrupt it. Now, what happens if Vodafone does shut down? It's not good. Like I told you, we're already perhaps at a very bad period as far as unemployment is concerned in our country, and there are 13,000 direct jobs that are dependent on Vodafone. Of course, 30 crore subscribers will have to figure out where to go in what will be a duopoly, leaving only two players, Bharti Airtel and Reliance Jio, to man the entire telecom system, which means you won't have too many choices. Also, it's likely that these two telecom operators will start raising prices. One, because they'll be able to, and two, because with only two players, all of the burden of the costs have to be shared only by two of those players as opposed to the many players that they were some time ago. It's not a good sign also for the Indian economy or for India as an investment destination, because as you know, Vodafone in the UK had said it's not going to spend one more rupee in investment in the telecom sector in India because it believes that the government is managing it badly. The Competition Commission has constantly rejected Airtel and Vodafone when they kept going back to say that Reliance was actually running the business to the ground by dropping rates, and they didn't get any real relief from the government. So that's where it will actually wind up. We'll have only two players and they'll have the ability to increase the rates as much as they want to, and it's going to be very bad for the reputation of India. I want to tell you how we got to this point. How we got to a point where Telecom, if you'll remember, many years ago, was this big sector where everybody wanted to get in and everybody wanted to make money, and it was going to be the sector that sort of took India into this digital world. How did we get to a point where these companies are going bankrupt? Well, back in 1999, India used to be a country that actually charged a very heavy license fee to buy spectrum and to use spectrum and to run a telecom company. It shifted from that into a sort of revenue share where you use the spectrum and you give the government a share of all of the money that you make in revenue. But at that time, the government hadn't specified how it wanted to calculate that revenue really in order to decide what its share was. TRAI later said that they wanted a share, the government wanted a share of gross revenue, which is all kinds of revenue, not just the money that you've made from using the spectrum. Well, the telecom companies and TRAI at that point disputed a great deal, and it went to court in 2003. That lasted for 14 years. And in October last year, the Supreme Court decided that it wanted these companies to pay up based on the government's calculation. So the Supreme Court decided that these companies have lost their case. Post that, they went back and appealed multiple times, and all of those appeals were rejected. But a 7,000 crore rupees that a Vodafone, for example, owed the government, then had a penalty on it, then had interest on it, then had interest on the penalty, and that amount really ballooned to 53,000 crore rupees. And let me tell you where the rest of them are. Airtel owes 35,586 crore rupees, out of which it's paid about 10,000. Tata Telecom, you'll remember, actually sold its holding to Airtel, and it owes 13,800 crore rupees. BSNL and MTNL, both of whom are already in trouble, owe about 4,900 crores and 3,100 crore rupees. There's one guy who's not so bad, and that's RIL's Jio. Reliance Jio owes about 195 crore rupees because it's a recent entrant and it has not accumulated all of these fines and penalties and fines and interest on the penalty and those fines. So it's actually paid up that amount and it hasn't hurt too much. Now, when the Supreme Court decided in October last year these companies have to pay up, they actually, there's an association of these companies that went to the government and say, hey, can you figure out how to make this a little easier because we might go bankrupt. So the government was actually looking at the possibility of maybe forgiving some of the penalties or bringing down the interest rate, at which point, quite helpfully, I must tell you, RIL wrote to the government and said, don't help these guys out. In fact, insist that they pay in the next 3 months in full. And this was a report in the Mint and the Business Standard. RIL wrote to Ravi Shankar Prasad, who's the telecom minister, and said, do not make it easier for the other guys. the government has not made it easier for the other guys. And we are looking at a possibility of a company as big as Vodafone going bankrupt in India. It's not good for our economy. Like I said, it's not good for jobs. In the meantime, the ones who are left, BSNL, MTNL, we know are not making money, and they have collective losses that is actually going to cost the government a great deal. And the competition with the private sector, namely Reliance, has actually driven them even further down. Airtel is not making a profit at this point. The only profit-making company is Reliance Jio. It's a very interesting story to watch, and we're going to actually figure out over the next couple of weeks how this plays out. But the Supreme Court has not given these companies any time. It in fact had insisted that they make payments by Friday last week, giving them actually just overnight to make those payments. And this was something that the DOT, or the Department of Telecom of the Government of India, also reiterated, because when the payments didn't come in full, it actually began consulting its Supreme Court lawyer to see what needs to be done, and if the bank guarantees that these companies had put in, if those need to be now cashed and taken in. These companies basically feel that if the bank guarantees are now brought in, then it will drive them further and more quickly towards bankruptcy. It's a difficult situation, and it doesn't bode well for the idea that there's ease of doing business in India.